When I was 13 years old, I solved mysteries with my friends. Then I discovered the haunting truth behind my upbringing. In my relentless pursuit of the truth about Middleview, I made the grave mistake of questioning Mom. The facade of normalcy I had carefully constructed around my white memory started crumbling under the weight of the horrifying reality I had uncovered. Days passed, and the torment of my newfound knowledge gnawed at the edges of my sanity. Despite my mother's perception that I had embraced the lie of memory erasure, I struggled to maintain the illusion. Eating, sleeping, and meeting my mother's gaze became insurmountable tasks. The charade played out convincingly during breakfast, the only time I needed to feign ignorance. However, the internal turmoil I faced was inescapable. My mind, once dulled by delusions suppressed with medication, now confronted the vivid truth behind the Middleview 4, a revelation both shocking and nightmarish. The fantasy concocted by my therapist and mother, dismissing the Middleview 4 as a childhood trauma response, unraveled before me. The characters I believed were mere figments of my imagination were real, and more unsettlingly, they were comprised of strings. As the days unfolded, the strain of pretending to be oblivious became unbearable. Mom, ever perceptive, sensed the unraveling of my carefully crafted facade. Attempts to conceal my distress proved futile, especially when confronted with probing questions about my nightly activities. "You're quiet today," Mom observed, her attempt to pour me more orange juice revealing a visible tension. I struggled to maintain composure, my gaze fixated on the overflowing juice, an unwitting metaphor for the overwhelming truths I was forced to grapple with. The eerie dance of strings, the lifeless puppetry that now defined the Middleview 4, haunted my thoughts. Each sip of orange juice brought back visions of Noah Presley, strings weaving through his once human form, an abhorrent puppet manipulated by an unseen force. Struggling to suppress my internal turmoil, I forced a smile and deflected attention from my distress. Yet my mother's awareness lingered, a subtle acknowledgement of my struggle. The charade was crumbling, and Mom's desperate attempt to maintain the illusion manifested in a strained grin that mirrored my own internal torment. Despite my mother's persistent concealment, I couldn't escape the haunting images of the entangled strings encasing my friends. The breakfast table, once a symbol of familial normalcy, now mirrored the twisted reality of Middleview. With each spoonful of cereal, I mechanically chewed, the rhythmic motions offering no solace from the tormenting visions in my mind. The strings danced before me, a grotesque ballet that defied the illusion of a benign childhood. In a desperate bid to escape the pervasive nightmares, I had resorted to substance-induced oblivion. Yet the hallucinations persisted, revealing the inescapable truth. The Middleview 4, once my cherished childhood companions, now marionettes manipulated by an unseen puppeteer. My mother's persistent attempts to erase my memories only intensified my internal turmoil. The entangled strings, the puppetry that robbed my friends of their humanity, continued to haunt me, defying the oblivion my mother sought to impose. The breakfast table, now stained with metaphorical overflows of truth, became a battleground of suppressed emotions. Mom's facade wavered, and my internal struggle manifested in a forced smile that mirrored her desperate attempt to shield me from the harrowing reality. As the puppeteer's invisible hand continued to pull the strings, I faced the disconcerting revelation. The woman I called Mom was an accomplice to this macabre stage show. The entangled strings, the lifeless dance, and the puppetry were inescapable, forcing me to confront a truth I could no longer suppress. My mind spun, a whirlwind of confusion and disorientation. In a desperate attempt to break free, I clawed my way out of the enveloping embrace of Mom's arms, sinking my teeth into her elbow in a fleeting act of defiance. With only half a step gained, my knees buckled, and Mom swiftly returned to my side. Her breath, heavy and strained, echoed in my ear as she spoke of an unsettling truth. "You are the property of an evil and very powerful little girl who owns this town and everyone in it," Mom declared with venom, her calm demeanor juxtaposed with the harsh reality she unveiled. In a controlled manner, She pushed me into the back of my car, sealing my fate with a resounding slam of the door. I begged them to save one of you, just one, and I wouldn't talk. I had to cut one of you down. Flashing lights disrupted my vision, and my head thudded against the window with a gentle but ominous sound. Mom's words, a chilling revelation, merged with phantom voices, creating an eerie symphony within my mind. A sharp prick on the back of my neck marked the onset of darkness, and I descended into a void, Mom's voice lingering as my body succumbed. I chose you. Mom's voice trembled, and the car accelerated, navigating bumps in the road. Her sobs filled the confined space, hands clutching the wheel with a desperate intensity. I had the choice to take any one of you, and all of you were special. All of you were my children. Marin. I wanted to take you far away from her. The memory fragmented, shattered by the drug's effects. Yet, as I revisited it in my mind, attempting to dissect the puzzle of my own past, threads of recollection began to weave together. At the breakfast table, grappling with the unnerving reality, I probed those specific words, unraveling another layer of the obscured memory. In the back of the car, darkness enveloped the world outside, rain battering the window. My hands, wet and warm, were entwined with strings. Foreign, yet strangely passive. I pressed my cheek to the cool glass, eyes tracing raindrops on their descent, momentarily captivated by their dance. A hooded figure occupied the passenger seat, a silent presence I struggled to comprehend, hindered by the drugs coursing through my veins. Attempting to voice my inquiry, I succumbed to the heaviness of my eyelids, falling back into the dark abyss. Mom's humming persisted, a distorted lullaby guiding my descent. "Sweetie, are you okay?" Mom's voice snapped me back to the present. Her humming lingered in my mind, a facade of comfort. Raising my head, I noticed my untouched cereal, unknowingly stirred into an unappetizing mush during my contemplation. The morning sunlight streamed through the kitchen blinds, a stark contrast to the darkness of the remembered car ride. A persistent thought surfaced. Who was the mysterious passenger in my mother's car? The brightness of the sunlight felt intrusive, reminiscent of the mysteries I once relished solving. Frustration and anger fueled my desire for understanding, pushing me to decipher the enigma within my memories. Two crucial questions echoed in my mind, overshadowing the gruesome reality of Noah, Eris, and May. As I confronted my mother, interrogating her with a textile fake smile, a specific question lingered. Who are they? I probed, mimicking Eris's unnatural puppet grin. Ignoring her discomfort, I continued my questioning, referencing figures from my past. Mr. Mame, my middle school principal. Mr. Stevens, my creepy janitor. Noah Presley. May Lee. Eris Kane. The names reverberated, each syllable a painful reminder of their fate. Tears welled up, and a sense of despair enveloped me. Mom, seemingly oblivious, consumed her breakfast with visible difficulty. Who are they, Mom? I pressed, seeking answers that eluded me. With a single question, my mother transformed before my eyes. The world tilted abruptly, and I found myself sprawled across the table, a wet patch beneath me. My mother, now hissing into her phone, cast shadows on my disoriented vision. The revelation hit. I had fallen victim to the oldest trick in the book. The orange juice, too orangey, had been a nefarious delivery method for the drugs that plunged me into confusion. Drugged, of course. In an abrupt shift of events, I found myself enveloped in my mother's arms, my head hanging awkwardly, bile dripping down my chin. This sedative surpassed the potency of the car ride ordeal. Being carried outside, I was laid onto car seats with an unfamiliar scent of leather and opulence. The journey was brief, with glimpses of towering walls concealing Middleview and an elderly man peering through a window. Winding hallways unfolded, and in my disoriented state, I swore we passed an open playroom adorned with colorful letters and sponge blocks. Subsequently, I found myself on an unfamiliar bed, encircled by white walls, initially mistaking it for a hospital. Mom stood over me, sporting a broken smile and swollen eyes. As she grabbed my arm, I sensed something entangled in her hands. Strings. The unraveling began, seams parting like a dress, resembling the color of blood coursing down my skin. Mom, in a frenzied state, tugged at the strings, an act that felt both cruel and cold. I felt her slicing into my flesh, removing the threads that bound me. A kiss pressed to my forehead felt familiar amidst the disconcerting scene. I'm going to make it all go away, and then we're going to move far away, Mom assured, her voice carrying a hopeful tone. Door opened and closed, footsteps approached, and a plastic object was secured over my face. Mom's voice echoed, reminiscent of my puppet friends, singing of escaping to a place where an unseen adversary wouldn't find us. The subsequent 3 days unfolded like an unending acid trip, a consequence of being looped up on peculiar drugs, something not entirely unfamiliar. Marin, fuck, wake up. A muffled, slurred voice snapped me into awareness. Reliving the memory of case number 14 at the age of 14, a mystery involving burn marks on people, particularly high school beauty pageant participants, flooded my consciousness. Our pursuit led us to an abandoned sawmill, where we inadvertently encountered laughing gas. Noah, you sent us to our deaths, Eris accused, and tension escalated as the gas surrounded us. As the doors slammed shut, trapping us, the effects of nitrous oxide took hold. While consciousness slipped away, I experienced an otherworldly sensation, suspended in the air with the others, restrained and hovering dangerously above a vat of bubbling liquid. Reality twisted, and the delusions of heights and danger dissolved. We were securely fastened in safety harnesses, the toxic waste a mere illusion. Eris, however, whispered about unseen eyes and lines, a haunting revelation that sliced through the facade. I reassured him about his real mother, and the ropes jolted as we descended. Eris spoke of lines and eyes, an ethereal reality he perceived but wasn't allowed to fully acknowledge. The descent continued, oblivious to the lines that sliced through our perception. Suddenly, a dark material fell in front of us, and a male voice yelled, "Cut," revealing the unexpected nature of what had been hanging before us. A veil concealed the scene. Behind it, applause reverberated, and my body was forcefully pulled. Though tethered to the others, they hung motionless, heads drooping. I clung to the warmth in their hands, still entangled with mine. "Great work, everyone." The voices amplified, rendering me immobile, breathless. Figures emerged through the curtain, while one lingered behind. Someone stepped forward, pricking my chin with a perfect manicure, raising my head. Mom. In the waning lights, my half-lidded eyes met my mother's gaze. Attempting to cry out, I felt the jarring lines severing through me, ensnared around my fingers, arms, and legs. Strings. Dancing, suspended on strings, I endured an agonizing, pulling sensation, evoking a raw screech in my throat. "Mom," I croaked. "It hurts." Her fingers cradled my face. "I know it does, Marin. Just hold still for me." The sound of cutting instilled fear, but as my body relaxed, growing limp, a final snip sent me tumbling to my knees. Fully cognizant of the severed strings hanging from me, fragments of bloody thread clung to my skin. Free at last, Mom embraced me, and my head hung awkwardly, devoid of strings. "Wait," Eris croaked. "You're leaving us." His voice, punctuated by sharp breaths, felt like a whirlwind colliding with me. I tried to break free from Mom's grasp, but she was already pulling me away. When I turned my head, Eris was still conscious, suspended by cruel strings that cut through him. Still human, still warm, still breathing. His glassy eyes met mine, lips twisting in agony. Instead of speaking, his mouth stretched into a horrifying grin as his strings manipulated him. "Please," Mom whispered, her arms shielding me. "Let me take Peter. Just 2 of them, Peter and Marin. I'll take them far away. I won't speak a word about any of this, I promise." "1," a man's voice grumbled. "We agreed on 1. take her to the last viewing point. But he's still conscious. Viewing point, the man repeated. Now. No. I resisted Mom's grasp. Through half-lidded eyes, I watched Eris's head drop, suspended by strings. Noah and May were motionless, but he was still conscious, aware, and in agony. My mouth was filled with wriggling insects, stifling my breath. You can't leave them. Marin, you have to be quiet. Mom hissed into my hair. She'll hear you. No. The last fragments of this memory were hazy, disjointed, and wrong. Splintered parts of other memories seeping through the black hole in my head. I remember being dragged away, kicking and screaming. Bright lights blinded me. A gentle hum echoed in my ear. It's challenging to distinguish memories, especially those long suppressed. The ones I wasn't allowed to see. Seated on a stone table, bathed in a single light, I sensed entanglement. Rope? No, it hurt too much for rope. I could feel it wrapped around me. My own string, now back, binding me to 3 other bodies. They felt cold, while I exuded warmth, soaked in wet warmth that dripped down my face. Their backs against mine felt unnatural, like cold lumps of flesh. In the pitch darkness, a single spotlight illuminated the scene. My gaze lazily followed the beam, glimpsing trails of scarlet splashed across the table, turning black in the shadows. Above us, a blade, already tainted with new red. Red, intended to be beautiful, now stained on those horrific cutting teeth. I already knew what it was for and what it had done. Why I was wet, why I would never be clean again. But I was still breathing, still human, while they were still. Are you leaving us? Eris's phantom voice echoed in my ears as I wrenched myself from my own strings. I jumped off the table, tearing away his restraints, severing his strings. Except Eris wasn't human anymore. His head hung, eyes carved out and replaced with more animated ones, glassy and everlasting. My trembling hands found his torso, but he had been hollowed out entirely. His mouth dropped open. I tried Noah, and then May. As I released their ropes, they fell limp, heads tipped back. I shook them. They didn't move. Or they moved only when I touched them. Something was dripping. Stumbling back, I stepped into something wet, squelching between my toes. My gaze fell to the floor, a river of red and gore seeping across pristine marble. No wonder they took that memory away from me. Why I was found screaming, inconsolable. I can still see it. The slithering red reality of my friends, what had been scooped out of them to maintain their roles. In a town where I was born, lived a man who sailed the sea, and he told us of his life in the land of submarines. Back in the present, inside the White Room, slowly coming down from the cocktail of drugs forced inside me, someone was singing directly in my face. Apologies, Eris Kane chuckled, causing a jolt in my body. When I opened my eyes, he stood over me, bathed in a halo of white light, still clad in the same diner clothes, but no signs of strings. His freckles seemed to shift, and Eris playfully blew cold breath on my face. This version of him appeared older, with thick sandy hair falling into dark eyes. I don't know the rest of the lyrics, but hey, you're awake now. Sitting up, I blinked in the surreal heavenly glow. It was the drugs toying with my senses, but this was a trip I wouldn't complain about. I sensed a weight beside me. May, her pigtails brushed my face, making me want to sneeze. She had her back turned, engaged in a hushed conversation with someone. Noah. His shadow loomed in the doorway, his reddish-brown hair slicked back. He wasn't smiling, lips pressed into a thin line. Beyond him, I noticed flashing lights. The door was slightly ajar, casting a red glow in the hallway. She's awake. Eris's murmur redirected my attention. Awkwardly kneeling on my bed, he joined May in facing me. Noah gave a hasty thumbs up from the doorway. May reached out to grasp my hand, a pair of scissors peeking from her jeans. Do you remember our 6th mystery? Dizzily nodding, I responded. We had to stay quiet to avoid being caught by old lady Carlyle in the missing piano case. May's lips formed a smile. Exactly, she said. You need to stay quiet, okay? Just like back then. Eris pressed a finger to his lips. Don't say a word. Mouth shut, weirdo, Noah added, leaning against the door, scissors tucked into his belt. I mimicked zipping my lips, still half conscious. Hallucinating the middle view for just like I remembered them brought me immense joy. Keep that mouth shut, I pledged. Okay. May's expression grew serious. Marin, you need to be brave for me. She reached out, cradling my cheeks like my mother. In that moment, Mei Lee felt undeniably real. Her eyes widened, lips pressed thin, pigtails hanging loosely. Everything about her was real. You need to remember our last case. I sensed her urgency. May turned to the door, receiving a thumbs up from Noah. She focused back on me, her expression contorted. What did we see when we entered the string factory that night? 1 minute, Noah's attention was outside. May, hurry the heck up. I'm going as fast as I can, she gritted out, tightening her grip on my shoulders. I can't remember, I admitted breathlessly. Why? Eris, Noah grumbled. Little help. Eris nodded, joining Noah in the doorway, exchanging low murmurs. Think. May urged, her eyes wild, searching mine. She squeezed tighter, her biting nails leaving an impression. Go back to that moment. May caught herself, exhaling. Please. You need to remember. What did we see? In response to May's words, I mentally revisited our last case. Noah and Eris helped throw open the door. It was cold. I could see my breath. I recalled our 4 flashlight beams piercing the darkness. Before, nothing. Oblivion. And then I was sitting on the sidewalk, covered in string, screaming, just as I remembered. When I opened my eyes to convey this to May, she was gone. The door to my room was closed, and the 3 of them had finally faded, my mind finding its bearings. Time passed swiftly. Mom visited, wearing her usual smile. She assured me everything would be okay. I disregarded her, fixating on the noticeable crease on my bed where May had been sitting. Marin. I blinked, shifting my focus to my mother. Yes, Mom cleared her throat. I said, this is Dr. Delaney. He's going to help you. I hadn't even noticed a second presence in the room. A guy, seemingly a trainee, dressed in blue scrubs with his face concealed behind a mask. As soon as he stood in front of me, time seemed to accelerate. I felt the warmth of his fingers on my temples and the sudden buzzing sensation that indicated familiarity. His touch, gentle yet firm, lulled me into half slumber. Still frowning at the crease in my bed sheets, Mom's voice struck me, and my head tipped back. Erase her completely. Mom's voice was stern. I could hear her pacing back and forth, the click-clack of her heels jolting me awake. We've already had to deal with deaths among the stage crew, and she already cut one of them down. We just need things to go back to the way they were. Marin has nothing to do with this, and as for the middle view 4, just like her previous attempt to memory wipe me, this one didn't work either. I came to fruition back home, with orange juice and ice cream carefully arranged in front of me. 2 days had passed, and the same sunlight pierced through the blinds, irritating my eyes. Mom sat across the table, lips grazing the rim of her glass. How are you this morning, sweetheart? Hey. Noah tossed a Lucky Charm across the table. He straightened in his seat. I appreciated his presence. He made sure to sit as far away from Mom as possible, making faces when she approached him. I think the overall consensus is that you can't trust this woman. She could be our puppeteer. Also, she's drugged you, like 10,000 times. I doubt she's bad, Eris said, sitting next to him, playing with his bowl of cereal. Why would she save Marin? Noah shrugged, flicking a Lucky Charm in Eris's face. I dunno, man. Does your mom drug you to keep you quiet? Eris rolled his eyes. What makes you think her mom is the mastermind? That. Noah pointed to my mother. Mom was on the phone. I didn't understand what he was talking about until I saw a single string above her. My stomach churned at the sight. A single string somehow entwined around my mother's mind. Yes, Mom spoke softly. Everything is sorted. Is the situation okay now? I've been informed that we are no longer in code black. She's talking about us. May grumbled beside me. How do you know that? Eris raised a brow. Duh. One of us was cut down. They're making sure Marin isn't compromised. Eris inclined his head. But what are they talking about? Who knows? May sighed. Whoever is our puppeteer is powerful enough to control the stage crew too. Her lips curled into a grimace. Unlike us, though, they're still alive. We need to figure out who did this to us. No declared, his eyes lighting up. It's been 8 years, and we still haven't solved the string murders. Well, yeah. Eris blew a raspberry, resting his fist on his chin. On account of us being dead. He turned to me. Still, why talk about us when we're dead? Even if she cut one of us down, they can just string us back up, right? Because we're important, May said. But to who? Noah slapped the table. That is what we gotta figure out. He grinned. I've missed this. Middleview 4 back at it. I found myself smiling. I've missed this too. Solving the mystery of ourselves. May hummed. Marin. Mom was frowning at me, her phone still in her hand. She inclined her head. What have you missed? Nothing, I said. Have fun at work. 4 hours since she left, and I'm pretty sure I'm hallucinating my dead friends. I just need to do one more thing and cut them all down. This is going to kill me. I could be putting myself back on strings, but I'm not leaving them there. I'm terrified of what my mother and her work will do, but I'm not leaving them again. No way. One last mystery to solve. I went to a billionaire murder party, and I can't believe what I saw. I found myself on an unexpected adventure when I attended a billionaire murder party, and the unbelievable sights I witnessed left me questioning whether I had overreacted or if danger lurked beneath the opulence. The journey to the mansion, nestled atop a small hill, felt endless, the road cutting through a dense forest. Upon arrival, the sprawling estate greeted me, surrounded by a vast parking lot filled with luxury vehicles. Amidst the opulent cars, a restored 1977 vintage cargo van stood out, proudly labeled Best Friends Catering Company. Cursing my fate, I parked my modest vehicle next to it, acknowledging the irony that Chad, my less than friendly boss, was associated with a venture bearing such a misleading name. Chad, my boss of 4 years, possessed a unique brand of unpleasantness. Having worked for him since my failed acting audition, I considered myself lucky to escape his presence during my upcoming vacation. Entering the mansion revealed an astonishing sight. Walls knocked down, transforming it into a colossal open-space bachelor pad adorned with extravagant elements. Bear skin rugs, leather ottomans, an Olympic-sized pool, and medieval tapestries contributed to the lavish spectacle. As envy crept in, Chad hinted that the party's host was James Allister, a billionaire known for forming and selling numerous successful companies. Venturing into the kitchen, I joined fellow caterers completing food preparations. Amidst self-pity, a familiar voice greeted me. Sandy, a co-worker and aspiring screenwriter, adorned in a bow tie. Despite our connection, built on shared festival mishaps and dreams of collaboration, I had yet to summon the courage to ask her out. Why didn't you take the van with us? Sandy inquired. You know the answer, I replied, gesturing toward Chad, who, with his obnoxious mustache, was unpacking water bottles. Chad, always quick to interject, accused me of being an hour late and emphasized the importance of a unified entrance for a professional impression. Dismissing his lecture, I excused myself from serving at the cash bar. Behind the bar, boredom set in until an elderly lady demanded a cosmopolitan. Handing it over, I muttered about the tip jar. The billionaire host, James Allister, approached for a gin martini, and a casual conversation ensued, revealing peculiarities about the other guests. As Jim shared insights into the attendees' quirks, I struggled to contain my laughter. His amusing anecdotes about ivory collectors and sparkling water enthusiasts lightened the atmosphere. Jim's departure left me reflecting on the surreal encounter until Chad reappeared, critiquing napkin alignment. Grinning and bearing Chad's fussiness, I pondered the strange and eccentric world of billionaires, uncertain if danger lurked beneath their luxurious facade. Shortly after, my billionaire companion returned, seeking a refill and expressing his disdain for the party attendees. His deadpan sincerity about hating every individual in the room prompted genuine laughter from me. "If you had to pick one to off, who would it be?" he inquired, playfully challenging me to name an unfortunate soul. Wanting to sidestep any awkwardness, I hesitated, but he insisted, leading me to point out Chad, my boss, whose obnoxious presence stood out. Jim, the eccentric billionaire, approved of my choice and sauntered off to mingle. As the party continued, a coworker noticed Chad's absence and questioned it, finding it unusual for him not to micromanage the staff. Returning to the bar, Jim reappeared with news that Chad was no longer a problem, adding another layer to his peculiar sense of humor. He joked about choosing the next victim, and our running gag persisted. As Jim left, he returned to discuss his plans for the next target, weaving dark humor into our conversation. The night unfolded with Jim periodically updating me on his fictional murders, each time leaving me amused and slightly bewildered. The atmosphere shifted when I ran out of ice, prompting a visit to the kitchen. There, I found coworkers frantically searching for Chad, highlighting the trivial concerns surrounding him. Determined to find Sandy, I headed to the basement for ice. Basements, regardless of the setting, carried a familiar ambience. In the dimly lit space, I located the ice bags and stumbled upon a shocking scene beneath them. An elderly woman's arm adorned with pearls, a pool of dried blood, and to my horror, Chad among the casualties. Panic seized me as I grappled with the realization that Jim was, in fact, carrying out his morbid jokes. Frantically pacing, conflicting thoughts overwhelmed me. Escape, find Sandy, be a hero, or call the police. Fumbling with my phone, I dialed 911, hastily narrating the chilling events. The response was inexplicable. The operator abruptly hung up, denying assistance. Confused and desperate, I redialed, only to be met with the same cold refusal. A sense of dread gripped me as the implications of the situation sank in. Jim, the eccentric billionaire, wasn't just telling dark jokes. He was orchestrating a deadly soiree, and I found myself entangled in a sinister web of wealthy madness. Desperate and without alternatives, I ascended the stairs, frantically searching for Sandy. The reception area was deserted, everyone having migrated to the expansive lawn behind the mansion. Venturing into the backyard, I scanned the crowd for Sandy, attempting to maintain composure. Eventually, I spotted her gracefully maneuvering through the party, serving light bites on a tray. Running up beside her, I leaned in urgently. "Sandy, hey, what's up?" she replied, distracted by a guest. Walking alongside her, I faked smiles and nods while passing the elite attendees. "There's something I need to tell you." A hand on my shoulder, and Jim's voice interrupted. "Dan, come over here. Hey, Carl. Carl, you gotta meet Dan." He led me away from Sandy to another area of the lawn. "Hey," said Carl, a clean-shaven man, acknowledging me without eye contact. "This man makes the best gin martinis I've ever had," Jim boasted, pointing at me. "You gotta try one." Coming from him, "I know that's a compliment," Carl responded. The man's had a lot of gin martinis. The two men laughed, and as Carl walked away, Jim approached me, leaning in. "Embezzled millions," he disclosed, making a slicing motion across his neck. Winking, he walked away. Returning to my search for Sandy, I found she had vanished. Running to a coworker, I attempted to explain but stopped, realizing the tale was too far-fetched. Grabbing a bottle of gin, I chugged it, lamenting the absence of Chad to witness the chaos. Thoughts returned to Jim and the bodies. I needed to escape and find Sandy. Spotting her nearby, I ran over to warn her. "Sandy, I've got to tell you something." Jim's loud whistle interrupted, gathering guests for a toast. Approaching, he raised his glass, unveiling his sinister intentions. Thank you. No, please. I just wanted to say that I'm so glad that you're all here today." Observing the smiling faces, he continued, "Because you're horrible humans." Laughter erupted, and he reveled in the chaos he was about to unleash. Pointing at me, Jim declared, "Except for you. Not you, Dan. You're good people." The garden fell silent as everyone turned to look at me, perplexed by my presence among the caterers. Dan's a caterer, by the way. Oh, on that note. Dan, that girl, you like her, right? I mean, not to put you on the spot, but you've been eyeing her all night. Pointing at Sandy, Jim exposed my crush to the crowd, leaving me and my coworkers bewildered. "Actually," Jim added, walking over, "what about them? Are they cool?" Frozen, I nodded, trapped in the bizarre turn of events. Jim assured the masked ushers that the caterers were safe, then resumed his speech, revealing his murderous intent. Suddenly, fences rose, and masked ushers armed with machetes descended upon the panicked guests. Jim stood at the center, reveling in the chaos. Sandy and I ran towards the house, defying Jim's warning. The entrance, however, was locked. A familiar voice greeted us, and Jim emerged, smiling. Attempting to explain my actions, I faltered when he mentioned my attempt to call the police. Closing in with a machete, Jim delivered a surprising handshake, declaring us and the caterers safe. Bewildered, we followed him outside. As Jim escorted us through the parking lot, chaos unfolded behind us. He casually commented on my van, hinting at Chad's fate. Reaching my car, Sandy and I locked the doors, sharing a silent moment of shock and fear. I started the engine, drove away, and in the rearview mirror, witnessed Jim waving goodbye in the distance. Nightfall Enigma, the eerie encounter in the playground. Did I react excessively, or was this a legitimately perilous situation? Just a few days ago, I ventured out to the park for a late-night smoke on my bike. The clock striking 10 p.m. on a Thursday, my aim was to find a secluded spot near the park's playground to indulge in a joint, considering it was a less frequented area, especially after dark, likely due to the absence of any illuminating lights. As I parked my bike and prepared to light up, a sense of disquiet settled upon me as I heard footsteps drawing nearer. Swiftly turning around, I discerned a figure, likely male and standing at 6 feet, advancing towards me. The darkness obscured any details of the person's face or attire, and my fleeting glance was enough to propel me into a hasty retreat with my e-bike. The disconcerting and perplexing aspect of this encounter lies in the individual's path. Instead of utilizing the road, he traversed the playground directly toward me. The gravel stones beneath my feet were the only reason I became aware of his presence. What adds to the mystery is that I spotted him when he was just 10 feet away, yet he made no effort to accelerate his approach. There was an eerie silence. No customary "good evening" or even a mocking laugh reached my ears. Despite contemplating turning back with my lights on to identify this enigmatic figure, an overwhelming fear held me back. The lingering question persists. Why would someone be alone in the darkness, navigating a playground, heading towards a stranger without utilizing the road, and maintaining an unsettling silence throughout? The Cryptid Conundrum. A Louisiana nightmare. My closest companion met a gruesome fate, devoured alive, and the disbelief surrounding my account is overwhelming. I implore you, the community here, to lend credence to my tale. Witnessing the remarkable experiences shared by many here, I am desperate for your assistance. Currently residing in Louisiana, I find myself in need of your collective wisdom. Offering some background, I, 19M, and my 4 companions, Perry, 19M, Gwen, 21F, Jordan, 18M, and Jess, 20F, operated a modest YouTube channel centered around cryptid exploration. Despite our meager 200 subscribers and 10 to 30 average video views, we deemed ourselves cryptid hunters, capturing shaky footage of bushes and reacting hysterically to every rustle in the woods. Our usual haunts included swamps and forests, territories we believed we had thoroughly scoured. However, a decision to venture into a new swamp, farther from our homes, using Jordan's rusty van fueled by his side job earnings, led us into uncharted territory. Upon arrival, we surveyed the surroundings, a deviation from our usual routine, and against my better judgment, we chose to split up. Jess and Perry paired off, while Jordan, Gwen, and I formed the second group. Armed with a camera and GoPro devices, we spent hours navigating the vast area, the oppressive heat and discomfort nearly prompting us to abandon our quest. In a moment of ill-conceived spontaneity, I proposed a ludicrous idea to Jordan for a hypothetical video. He would perform a comical dance, and I would film him, humorously declaring, "The white guy in his natural habitat." A trifling joke for an equally trivial channel. Stationed in a bush for added realism, Gwen expressed unease, warning of ominous vibes. Regrettably, I dismissed her concerns. The initial snaps of twigs and Gwen's persistent tugging on my sleeve failed to register until a creature leaped from the trees, exposing the grisly reality of a stomach being laid bare. Terror gripped me, nearly prompting a scream, while Gwen seemingly fainted beside me. I hesitate to delve into the gory details, the sickening memory of that stomach-turning moment haunting my thoughts. The stench of death lingered, and as the creature dragged Jordan away, Gwen and I fled, stumbling upon the van where Perry and Jesse awaited. When asked about Jordan's whereabouts, my only response was a frantic plea for them to drive. Attempts to share the footage have been met with skepticism. No one believes it wasn't a bear or a wolf, but I know what I saw. It wasn't a wolf or a bear. It possessed an unsettling, almost human quality. I fervently pray that someone, if a higher power exists, can shed light on what monstrous entity consumed my friend. Closure, even a fraction, is all I seek. Idiot. Additional details, as some have requested. Our location is in Acadiana, with the specific swamp's name and location eluding my memory in the vast expanse of 1,000 similar terrains. The vehicle in question was a Chevrolet Express 3500. Upon reviewing mine and Gwen's footage, the creature bore a striking resemblance to the suggestions found in your comments, a rougarou. I extend my sincere gratitude to everyone offering their assistance. I will explore avenues with local residents to glean more information on this cryptic entity.